My husband Nestor was anxiously waiting outside the operating room for his first love, and I was only separated from him by a wall. When Pamela was wheeled out of surgery, she weakly asked her husband, "Where's Sister Sabi? Why didn't she come with you?" At the mention of my name, Nestor replied coldly, "Don't worry about her. She's perfectly fine." But he didn't know that the new heart beating in Pamela's chest was mine. Chapter 1. The nurse covered my lifeless body with a white sheet, quietly announcing the end of my life. I was clearly dead, and yet my soul hovered above the room, refusing to leave. I watched the doctors as they bustled about in the operating room. I saw Pamela's vitals finally stabilize and how they wheeled her out. As if drawn by instinct, I followed. Nestor was pacing at the door, his brows furrowed, fingers nervously tapping his phone in his pocket. When the doctor emerged, he rushed over, voice thick with worry. "How is she?" The doctor paused and said, "The surgery was successful, thanks to a heart that arrived just in time." Nestor's expression softened slightly, a breath of relief escaping his lips. "Do you know who the donor was?" "I'd like to thank their family," he asked, catching up with the doctor. The doctor shook his head. "I'm sorry, Mr.
Joe."
The donor requested to remain anonymous. Nestor nodded. All right. If he knew the heart that saved Pamela was mine, I wondered how he would react. Would he be glad that Pamela could live, or heartbroken over my death? The thought made my chest tighten, but how could I feel anything when I was already dead? I let out a self-mocking smile. Not long after, my body covered in a white sheet was wheeled out too. I passed right by Nestor in the hallway. For some reason, he suddenly turned around, dazed, staring at where I had just gone. But then he turned away and followed Pamela to her room. She was still unconscious. Nestor stayed at her side, waiting. I floated between them, a ghostly third wheel. Realizing this, I drifted back. Suddenly, a memory struck me. Pamela once screamed at me, "Sabrina, if it weren't for your manipulations, I would have been the one to marry Brother Nestor." And Nestor had said, "Sabrina, you should know why I married you." So I was the third wheel all along. But it didn't matter anymore. I had already stepped away even if it wasn't by choice. Chapter 2. Nestor held Pamela's hand tightly, resting his forehead gently on the back of it. I watched them silently. After a while, Pamela's fingers twitched, and she slowly opened her eyes. "Brother Nestor," her voice was hoarse from waking up, and Nestor's heart clenched at the sound. When Pamela saw him, tears welled up in her eyes. "Pammy, you're awake." Nestor quickly pressed the call button for the doctor. "Brother Nestor, I thought I'd never see you again." Tears rolled down her pale cheeks, making her look even more pitiful. Nestor's eyes filled with sorrow as he gently patted her hand. "It's okay now. Everything will be all right. You'll get better." Watching their tender moment, I felt a surge of bitterness. "Everything's fine for you, but what about me?" The doctor gave Pamela a full checkup. Everything was normal, and she just needed a bit more rest before going home. After the doctor left, Pamela cautiously asked, "Where's Sister Sabi? Why didn't she come with you?" Hearing my name jolted me from my thoughts. Nestor's face darkened. He lowered his gaze and said coldly, "Don't worry about her." Pamela simply replied, "Oh," and dropped her head, but I clearly saw the faint smile tugging at her lips. It was the same old trick, bringing me up in front of Nestor to see how he'd react. Everyone could see through it except Nestor. After dinner, Nestor checked the time and said he needed to go home. Pamela struggled to sit up, looking scared. "Brother Nestor, I don't want to be here alone, I'm afraid." He took out his phone and checked it. No new messages. Nestor hesitated. "Should I ask Aunt Wong to stay with you?" Aunt Wong was our housekeeper. She cooked for both Nestor and me. "Can't you stay with me?" Pamela bit her lip, her voice softening. Nestor stayed silent for a moment, then unlocked his phone and opened our chat. We hadn't spoken in 2 days. My last message was, "Let's get a divorce." He had replied, "Stop making a fuss for no reason." Chapter 3. Seeing Pamela look at him with teary, bunny-like eyes, Nestor's heart softened. He texted me, "I'm not coming home tonight." I pressed my lips together. I knew it, but I couldn't reply to him anymore. When Nestor agreed to stay, Pamela finally smiled. I knew Brother Nestor was always the best to me. He gently patted her head, voice full of affection. I really can't say no to you. While he went to get water, Pamela pulled out her phone. She opened her secret WeChat account and sent a message to someone whose profile photo was completely black. Is everything settled? The reply came instantly. Don't worry. Everything is taken care of. A cold glint flashed in Pamela's eyes. She died and gave me her heart. At least she died for a good cause. So not only did she know I was dead, she had a hand in it. Looking at my translucent form and Pamela's smug expression, hatred rose inside me. But there was nothing I could do. I could only watch her pretend to be sweet and innocent with Nestor, living a beautiful life with my heart. When Nestor returned with a thermos, he sat by Pamela's side and began peeling an apple for her, but he seemed distracted. His eyes kept glancing at the phone lying beside him. Suddenly, the phone rang, startling him, and the fruit knife slipped, slicing the tip of his finger. He didn't even bother tending to the cut. Instead, he walked over to the window and answered the call. Hello, Sabi.
Yeah.
I won't be coming home tonight.
What?
She hasn't come back either? Nestor's expression shifted slightly. I understand. He hung up. Pamela watched him, quickly wrapping his finger with a handkerchief. What happened? She asked. Nestor shook his head. Something came up at work. I have to go. I was stunned. That call was clearly from Aunt Wong. Why was he lying? Pamela didn't seem to notice anything unusual and obediently nodded. All right, then go. Nestor grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned back and said, Get some rest. I'll come see you tomorrow. My heart stirred. I decided to follow him out of the hospital. I wanted to know where he was going. Chapter 4. On his way home, Nestor drove with a stern expression, seemingly troubled. At every red light, he opened our chat, stared at the screen, and sighed when he saw no new messages. He looked confused. What was he expecting? A reply from me? But he had clearly scorned me. Honestly, our marriage was an accident. We were from the same school but different years. She was 2 years ahead of me. Back then, he helped me when I was being bullied, and I quietly developed a crush on him, though I never dared to approach him. After he graduated, I heard he had joined his family's company and had a bright future. Knowing I'd probably never see him again, I buried those feelings deep inside. Not long after, my father fell into debt and jumped off a building. My mother couldn't take the shock and passed away soon after. To repay the debts, I worked during the day and took a night shift as a hotel cleaner. The next time I saw Nestor was at the hotel. He was drunk and unconscious, being taken to the presidential suite on the top floor. I was cleaning the bathroom when I overheard a phone call outside. The drug is ready. Come quickly. The key card is in the door slot. Then, the people left. I knew I shouldn't get involved, but after confirming the hallway was empty, I turned to leave. Just as I did, I looked back and saw Nestor lying on the bed, face flushed. His brows were furrowed, eyes closed, long lashes casting shadows on his skin. Should I help him? He had once saved me. Could I just walk away while he was drugged like this? After hesitating, I took the card, locked the door from inside, poured a glass of water, and walked to the bed, trying to wake him up. When Nestor opened his eyes, he looked dazed. He stared at me and suddenly muttered, Sabrina? I froze. Did he recognize me? Chapter 5. His expression quickly turned hazy again. Senior, have some water and take a shower, okay? I gently patted his shoulder, but Nestor grabbed my hand and pulled me onto the bed. In a dizzying moment, I found myself beneath him. He leaned in close, his breath burning against my skin, clouding my judgment. My heart raced uncontrollably. Senior, please wake up. I kept pushing his shoulders, but he was beyond reason. His burning lips crushed mine, and my mind went blank. I heard the last thread of my sanity snap. Everything spiraled out of control. Faintly, I heard hurried knocking on the door. Nestor cupped my face, murmuring, Sabi, focus. I didn't know how long it lasted, but eventually, I fell into a deep sleep and only woke when daylight flooded the room. Remembering what happened the night before, I sat up in fear. Nestor was still asleep beside me. I tried to slip away quietly, but my movement woke him. He squinted at me, seemingly trying to recall what had happened. What happened? His face darkened as memories returned. My heart pounded and I stammered. It was an accident, but He didn't want to hear it. Coldly, he said, "Wait for me outside," then went into the bathroom and put on a robe. I bit my lip, feeling endless grievances. Why was he treating me like this? He had lost control, so why did I have to bear the consequences? When he came out, he threw a bank card onto the coffee table. $1 million. Let's pretend nothing happened last night. I stared at the card, emotions churning. With a hoarse voice, I said, "It's not necessary." Nothing happened anyway. Then I opened the door and walked out. In the elevator, my legs were weak. I could barely stand, and tears finally spilled from my eyes. Chapter 6. Forget it. I told myself this could count as paying him back for saving me. After crying my heart out, I comforted myself. To avoid any more trouble, I quit the hotel that same day. But in my panic, I forgot to take the morning after pill. A month later, when my period didn't come, I bought a pregnancy test, still hoping it wasn't what I feared. But those 2 red lines turned my world upside down. As if that wasn't enough, on the day I went to the hospital to schedule the procedure, I ran into Nestor. He was walking in a rush and accidentally bumped into me, scattering all my papers. As he helped pick them up, he apologized but then froze when he saw my name and the abortion form. Nestor looked up at me, shocked, his eyes searching mine. "You're pregnant." I panicked and stammered that it was none of his business, trying to walk away. But he grabbed my arm. "We need to talk." And so, under the cruel arrangement of fate, I ended up marrying him while carrying his child. He paid off all my high-interest debts. It wasn't until after our wedding that I learned about Pamela, his childhood sweetheart. They had been engaged, and I was the one who came between them. But the baby didn't survive. 4 months into our marriage, after enduring Pamela's constant provocations, I finally snapped. She called my unborn child a bastard. She said I was a pitiful orphan with no one to rely on. I tried to stay calm, but then she pushed me down the stairs from the 2nd floor. In excruciating pain, I saw her twisted smile as she brought her hand to her heart and collapsed. When Nestor arrived at the hospital, our baby was already gone. I sat on the bed, crying my heart out, but his face was grim as he questioned me. "Don't you know Pammy has a heart condition? She can't be stressed out. What did you do to her?" I stared at him in disbelief. "I didn't do anything. She pushed me. Our baby is gone." But Nestor pressed his lips together and looked at me coldly. "Pammy is kind. She wouldn't do something like that. Sabrina, I'm disappointed in you." With that, he turned and walked away without looking back. Chapter 7. From that moment on, the last thread that connected Nestor and me was severed. He never touched me again. His attitude remained cold and distant. Pamela, on the other hand, was pleased with herself playing the sweet girl next door in front of Nestor while mocking and bullying me behind his back. "Just wait. I'll take him back," she said arrogantly. I never imagined she would go so far to reclaim Nestor, and in doing so, she also took my heart. I had already signed the divorce papers. I planned to leave the city the moment Nestor signed them. But Pamela had no intention of letting me go that easily. One early morning, she tricked me into leaving the house. She told me Nestor was in trouble and asked me to wait for her on Genhua Street. Although the area was remote and I had my doubts, I still went because it involved Nestor. To my horror, what awaited me was a staged car accident. I don't know when Pamela decided to target my heart or how she forged my organ donation consent form. But as someone with no family or social ties, my disappearance meant nothing to anyone. She succeeded. Chapter 8. I closed my eyes for a moment as Nestor slammed on the brakes. Oh, we were home. As soon as we stepped in, Aunt Wang greeted him. "Sir, Madam hasn't returned yet." Nestor frowned. "I see. When did she leave?" Aunt Wang thought for a moment. "Around 8 this morning. She got a call and left right after." Nestor nodded and motioned for her to go back to work. Then he turned and went straight up to my room. Everything was just as I had left it. He opened the wardrobe. All my clothes and luggage were still there, which seemed to give him a bit of relief. He sat down on the sofa, pulled out his phone, and sent me another message. "Where did you go?" How strange. Why was he suddenly so concerned about finding me? I watched him wait a few minutes. Just as he was about to call, his gaze landed on my desk. A few papers sat atop it. He stood up and picked them up. It was the signed divorce agreement. His face darkened immediately. Clutching the papers tightly in one hand, he dialed my number with the other. The number you have dialed is turned off. Please try again later. The cold, automated voice made his face grow even more tense. My phone had been crushed in the car crash. How could I possibly answer him? Watching his behavior from afar almost made me laugh. He had been indifferent to my life or death before, but now, he was this anxious after my disappearance. How ironic. He picked up his phone again and sent another message. Stop being so stubborn. Come home when you're done throwing your tantrum. Reading his words, an inexplicable sadness washed over me. When would he finally realize I was never coming back? Chapter 9. The next morning, Nestor brought a meal prepared by Aunt Wang to the hospital for Pamela. Brother Nestor. Pamela's eyes lit up the moment she saw him. These are your favorite dishes. Eat up so you can recover quickly. Nestor gently arranged the food on the small table. Watching him care for her made me hold my breath. Oh right, I wasn't supposed to be breathing anymore. Still, I felt a deep sadness. Because Nestor never remembered what I liked to eat, or perhaps he just never cared. I don't eat chives or spicy food, yet the first time we had dinner with Pamela, he took us to a Sichuan restaurant because she liked spicy food. The two of them chatted warmly, while I barely touched my food. Pamela looked at me half-jokingly and said, Sister Sabi, do you not like the restaurant Brother Nestor chose? Or do you just not want to eat with me? Nestor glanced at me curiously. It's not that I'm just not very hungry, I muttered, forcing myself to eat a few bites of the oily boiled beef slices. I pushed through the discomfort to sit through that meal with them, but by the time we got home, I had such a severe stomachache that I had to go to the ER in the middle of the night. And what did Nestor say to me then? How can you be this delicate? You're acting like this over one meal? Pammy's perfectly fine. I was so pale and speechless that I ended up staying in the hospital for half a month. Snapping out of my thoughts, I saw Pamela pouting and acting like a spoiled child. Brother, can you feed me? I don't want to move. Nestor chuckled. He was about to say yes, but then something seemed to click in his mind. His tone shifted. Pammy, you're an adult now. You can't always expect your brother to feed you. Pamela froze, clearly not expecting him to say no. Floating nearby, I suddenly recalled the argument we'd had before. What do you take me for? And what is Pamela to you? I had demanded. Nestor replied, Pammy and I grew up together. She's like family to me. Sabrina, stop being unreasonable. But no matter how much someone feels like family once you're adults, shouldn't there be boundaries? If you want to be with her, I'll leave. Our marriage was a mistake anyway. I had sobbed bitterly. If I hadn't saved him, I wouldn't have had to go through any of this. Nestor hadn't expected me to be so emotional, and for a moment, he looked confused. Don't cry. I'll be more careful from now on. Could it be that he remembered my words, and that's why he refused Pamela just now? I couldn't help but wonder. Then I laughed at myself. Nestor didn't love me. Why would what I said matter? Brother Nestor, are you getting tired of me? Pamela pouted again, her eyes shimmering with tears. Nestor immediately panicked, grabbing a tissue to wipe them away. No, don't get upset. It's not good for your heart. I'll never get tired of you. Pamela kept crying as she leaned her head against his chest. His body tensed, but he didn't push her away. Instead, he reached out and patted her back comfortingly. Watching Pamela's performance filled me with hatred. She had hurt both me and my child, and yet here she was, playing the victim and acting sweet, using my heart to do it. Brother Nestor is always the best to me, Pamela sniffled. If Sabrina hadn't seduced you, would you have married me instead? Nestor fell silent for a moment. Pammy, he said slowly, there's no what if. But what if Sabrina wasn't around anymore? Would you be with me then? My heart's fixed now. I won't be a burden to you. Pamela clutched his sleeve, her face stubborn. Nestor sighed. I promised your parents I'd take care of you. I won't go back on that promise. Don't worry, even if I'm married, I won't abandon you. I let out a bitter laugh. Pamela leaned against him, looking obedient, but her eyes were glowing with jealousy. After visiting Pamela, Nestor headed to the office. After passing the reception desk, he suddenly turned back. Have you seen my wife these past 2 days? He asked. The receptionist thought for a moment. No, Nestor's gaze darkened. Just as he was about to walk away, the receptionist suddenly remembered something. Mr. Show. What is it? He turned around. Yesterday morning, your wife called. She said she couldn't reach you and asked if you'd come into the office. You hadn't arrived yet, so I told her no. The receptionist was recalling my call from yesterday morning. Yes, after getting Pamela's call, I tried to contact Nestor. His phone was off. Then I called the office to check if he was there before heading to Genwa Street. Hearing the receptionist's words, Nestor looked puzzled. Yesterday morning? I never got her call, he murmured as he walked into his office. Thinking about it, he took out his phone again and stared at the unanswered messages. How long is this going to go on? Nestor sighed and picked up the intercom. Secretary, please book a restaurant for tonight. A table for two. It's our wedding anniversary. Hearing this, I stared at him in disbelief. Chapter 11. Nestor sent me another message. Sabi, I've made a reservation. Can we have dinner together tonight? A sour feeling rose in my chest, and tears welled up in my eyes. Yes, today was our first wedding anniversary. But what was the point of treating me kindly now? In the afternoon, Pamela called. Brother Nestor, when are you coming to see me? Nestor frowned, staring at his phone that hadn't lit up with a single reply. Brother? Pamela called again, testing his attention. When he didn't respond, she asked again. Nestor quickly snapped back to reality. Sorry, Pammy. I'm a bit busy today. I don't have time to visit. Okay, Pamela's voice sounded disappointed. Was Nestor really turning her down to have dinner with me? I was a bit surprised. But knowing Pamela, she wouldn't give up that easily. Sure enough, not long after, the hospital called. The doctor said Pamela had fainted. Her condition was unstable, and she needed a family member with her. A rare expression of frustration crossed Nestor's face. Still, he drove to the hospital. How's Pammy? Seeing her lying in bed with her eyes closed, Nestor hesitated and asked the doctor. Miss Spice suddenly got emotional and had trouble breathing, so she fainted, the doctor explained. With no one else available, Nestor had no choice but to stay and wait for her to wake up. He kept checking the time on his phone, maybe thinking about our dinner plans. But you won't make it tonight, Nestor. After 2 hours, Pamela slowly woke up. Brother Nestor, seeing him, she burst into tears again. Pammy, I had plans to have dinner with Sabi tonight. I really can't stay with you, Nestor said as soon as she opened her eyes. Pamela froze. With Sister Sabi?
Yes.
She hasn't responded, but I can't just not show up in case she does. Nestor nodded. Pamela lowered her head, but a mocking look flashed across her eyes. I could almost hear her thoughts. Sabrina is already dead. How could she possibly show up for dinner? Get some rest, Nestor said, getting up to leave. Brother Nestor. Pamela sat up and tried to get out of bed, but she stumbled and fell to the floor. Pammy. Nestor turned around quickly, rushing over to help her. In the process, his eyes caught sight of a small pendant that had fallen from the bidit, was the star-shaped charm from my necklace. What's this? He picked it up and handed it to Pamela. It's my pendant, she replied, her expression shifting slightly as she tucked it away quickly. Nestor found the pendant familiar, but couldn't quite place where he had seen it before. He helped Pamela back into bed and then immediately headed to the restaurant where we were supposed to meet. But he waited there all night and I never showed up. Chapter 12. The more Nestor thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Eventually, he couldn't hold back and hired a private investigator. Help me find out where Sabi went. I hovered near him, watching his anxious expression. To be honest, I was curious too, how exactly had Pamela gotten rid of me? The investigator responded quickly. There were no records of me buying any plane, train, or ferry tickets. The last sighting of me was captured on surveillance when I took a taxi from in front of our house. Upon reading the investigator's message, Nestor felt a chill in his heart. A trace of panic crept into his face. Track that taxi. The cab was legitimate and the driver was contacted quickly. He said he dropped me off near Genwa Street but didn't know anything else. There was no surveillance in that remote area. Genwa Street? That's so far out, what would she be doing there? Then Nestor remembered what Aunt Wong had mentioned. Around 8 in the morning, she got a call and left. He immediately ordered, check her call logs. Find out who contacted her. Still clinging to a sliver of hope, he didn't report it to the police just yet. Pulling the phone records wasn't difficult. The last incoming call was from Pamela. It was as if lightning had struck Nestor. What? He stood up so suddenly that he knocked over his coffee cup, spilling hot liquid all over his documents, but he didn't even notice. Suddenly, everything made sense. He remembered why he hadn't received my Callie had called while he was at the hospital with Pamela. She had asked to use his phone to play games. He checked the surveillance footage again. It wasn't immediately obvious, but Pamela had been wearing a necklace with a star-shaped pendant. All the color drained from Nestor's face. He contacted the investigator again. Find out who donated the heart to Pamela. I was surprised at how sharp Nestor had become. The shock and pain on his face were genuine. For the first time, his usually cold and indifferent expression revealed regret. The email from the investigator came quickly. The donor was Sabrina. Nestor closed his eyes slowly. His lips turned completely pale. So it was you, he murmured. I didn't know if he remembered that moment in the hospital when I was being wheeled out under a white sheet while he followed behind Pamela. Chapter 13. Nestor sped toward the hospital at 120 miles per hour. He slammed open Pamela's hospital room door. Brother Nestor? Why are you here so late? Pamela blinked, slightly frowning as she sat up. Where is Sabi? Nestor's voice was devoid of emotion. Sister Sabi? I don't know, Pamela feigned innocence, her eyes blinking sweetly. My patience is running thin, Pamela. Where did you take Sabrina? Nestor stepped forward, towering over her like a storm. The star pendant was on Sabi when she disappeared. If you really don't know anything, why was it with you? Pamela bit her lip, clearly preparing to lie again. But Nestor grabbed her wrist. Whose heart is inside you? Is it Sabi's? Tell me. Cornered, Pamela stopped pretending. Yes, it's hers. She's dead. Nestor's eyes darkened at her words. If she's dead, I want to see her body. Where is she? Pamela laughed, as if he'd just told a joke. You're trying to stand up for her now? Sabrina seduced you, got pregnant, and used every dirty trick to marry you. She stood in the way between us. What does it matter where she died? I took her heart. I'm alive and well now. And with Sabrina gone, you'll marry me, won't you? Her expression twisted into something manic. Dead or alive, I will never marry you, Nestor said coldly. I've always seen you as a sister. I never loved you. Where is she? He roared. Pamela's face contorted with resentment. I burned her. Scattered her ashes at sea. You'll never find her. Pain flickered in Nestor's eyes. He clenched his jaw, but tears still fell. He actually cried for me. I was stunned. Just then, the police, who had been waiting outside the room, walked in. Pamela's eyes widened. You called the police? Nestor stared at her with nothing but hatred. Of course. But I won't let you die. Because the heart beating in you still belongs to Sabi. Chapter 14. What Pamela had said was probably true. She had planned everything so meticulously that my body was gone without a trace. But Nestor refused to believe it. He searched everywhere for my remains, obsessively. If I could speak, I would have told him to stop. Regret after everything means nothing. He never loved me before, so why pretend now? Until he took out a photo album from his study. On the very first page was my student ID photo. I froze. That was my freshman year, ID, the one I'd lost long ago. I never imagined that Nestor had kept it all this time. Sabi, I'm sorry. If I had treated you better, if I hadn't protected Pamela so much, feeding her false hopes, would everything have turned out differently? Nestor stared at the photo in a daze. Then he gently placed it, along with my star-shaped pendant, into a small box. Sabi, you probably don't know this, but I've always loved you. His eyes were red as he hugged the box tightly, whispering to himself, even though you didn't love me back, I kept you by my side, terrified you'd leave, so I kept testing you, kept hurting you, and in the end, I caused your death. I was wrong. He loved me? I felt stunned. Was it because my soul had begun to fade that I felt nothing, even seeing his pain? Nestor purchased a small plot of land and buried the box with my photo and pendant. It became my cenotaph. From that day on, he visited it every single day with a bouquet of fresh lilies, sitting in front of it for half a day, drinking and rambling about the past. It turns out, Nestor had known all along that I wasn't the one who drugged him that night and that the drug hadn't affected him enough to cloud his mind completely. He realized it was me and he chose to go along with it. But afterward, he couldn't face me, so he tried to stay distant, hoping to calm himself. Unexpectedly, I quit and disappeared for an entire month. He searched for me everywhere until he found me in the hospital, on the verge of aborting the baby. That's when he panicked and insisted on marrying me. As for Pamela pushing me down the stairs, she truly believed it was an accident. Pamela's parents had once done him a great favor, and before they passed, they entrusted their daughter to his care. There had never been an engagement between them, contrary to what Pamela claimed. Nestor had only tried to protect her because of her weak heart. But regardless of his reasons, the damage he caused me was real, and that was something I could never forgive. Chapter 15. Pamela and the hitman she had hired were caught and sentenced to life in prison. Nestor used his influence to ensure Pamela's time behind bars was utterly miserable. She tried multiple times to contact him through the prison guards, but he refused to see her. Not long after, Pamela took her own life in prison. When Nestor received the news of her death, he was at my grave, gently wiping the tombstone with a damp cloth. "Dead," he muttered. "As long as her heart is returned, it doesn't matter." He answered the call with a chilling tone. On his way back, Nestor drove distractedly until he crashed into a truck that ran a red light at high speed on a curve. Ending it this way, maybe it's for the best. See you in the next life. Just before the impact, I heard him whisper softly, his hands leaving the steering wheel. There was no shock. Nestor died instantly. And as I watched, my body grew more and more translucent. I knew my time had come. If there is a next life, all I want is a peaceful and happy life. One where I never meet Nestor again. But when I opened my eyes, I was back in the hotel bathroom. Outside, someone was on the phone. "The drug is ready. Come quickly. The key card is in the door slot." That voice, that familiar scene, had I been reborn? I looked into the mirror in shock. I was a hotel maid again. Outside that door, Nestor was lying drugged. Remembering everything from my previous life, I quickly turned and walked away without hesitation. I let go of my savior complex, stopped trying to change fate, and simply respected the lives of others. In this life, I will live for myself.